Joining us now is Shift4 President and incoming CEO Taylor Lauber. Taylor, it's great to have you here.
Thanks
First broadcast interview. And that's where I'm going to start with you, because Shift4, payments processing, you have your hands into, the processing of transactions across restaurants, hospitality, leisure, travel, e-commerce, gaming, sports. What are you seeing in terms of consumer activity?
Yeah, we're seeing actually a pretty healthy consumer environment. So as you mentioned, we see daily transactions at about a third of the restaurants in the country, about 40% of the hotels, and an overwhelming number of sports and entertainment venues. It's largely been consistent throughout the trends of 2024. So I think a little bit of kind of the economic uncertainty that Wall Street might be worried about is certainly not playing through in the consumers that we see every day. Just by way of example, opening day at Yankees today, one of our great customers, looks quite crowded. I'm sure commerce is going to be great there. People still eager to get out and do things.
So this drop we've seen in some of the consumer confidence and sentiment readings, it's not translating to what people are actually doing in terms of opening up their pocketbooks.
Yeah, we've seen actually throughout 2024 a little modest pullback in restaurants. I think people are thinking twice about what they spend on a night out, but not avoiding the night out by any stretch of the imagination. We've also seen continued robustness in hotels through the spring break season, which really only just began here in the United States. So we feel pretty good about the world around us.
You've also been expanding into international markets, most notably Europe. You just inked the biggest deal, $2.5 billion enterprise value deal with Global Blue just last month, adding to the portfolio here. What are you seeing internationally as you start to integrate some of these different pieces?
We keep very busy, as you mentioned. International has been a huge priority for us for a while. But to give you a sense, we have about a 26-year history of running this business. All but the last 18 months, we've been predominantly in the United States. We're in over 50 countries today, just 18 months later. So we're seeing incredibly strong demand on the merchant front. We've added nearly 1,000 merchants in Europe in just the last month, by way of example. And we're seeing kind of increased demand for what we really specialize in, which is combining lots of pieces of the commerce value chain, the software, the payments, the analytics, all into a cohesive box for merchants so that they can get great insights and just simply run their business easier.
What's interesting to me is the fact that some of these markets, like Europe, have been so fragmented and have been slower to adopt some of these fintech possibilities.
Yeah, and it's been interesting for us to watch as well. This is kind of one of the first things that Jared and Shift4 team, pioneered 20 years ago, was this idea of combining these three cottage industries of software, hardware, and payments, and really eliminating three vendors and delivering a cohesive solution to the merchant. So we've been doing this for 20 plus years in the United States. It's been kind of painfully obvious to us that the rest of the world could benefit from this consolidation. And yet it took us some time to get the building blocks there. But again, as I said, 18 months ago, we kind of completed one of the larger acquisitions in our history that gave us the payment processing capability, and the demand from merchants is immense. Like, they're clearly signing up in droves for this simplification, and it makes obvious sense.
And we mentioned it at the top of the show, but you are incoming CEO. Jared Isaacman, founder and CEO, is currently has been appointed to become the NASA administrator, although that confirmation hearing, we're still waiting on those details. What do investors need to know? What does Wall Street need to know about Taylor? And I guess just as importantly, are you going to be as acquisitive?
Great question. So not a lot of mystery in terms of how the business is going to run. So while I've been at Shift4, this version of Shift4, for going on 8 years now, Jared and I have been friends since we were 16. I worked in his parents' basement when he first started the company. So I've had the privilege of watching Shift4 grow, not only as a friend and as somebody on the outside, but also inside the company. So nothing to change with regard to strategy. I'm really incredibly thrilled that the world gets to see kind of Jared on a grander stage. His ambition is not something that's unknown to us. So the idea that they can see a little bit of the ambition that's lived inside of Shift4 in a more public place is something that's, a personal point of pride. But no, not a lot's going to change. We've found that our acquisition strategy is incredibly helpful. As payments and commerce continue to be fragmented around the world, we can take these really critical components and bundle them and make life simpler for merchants. And so we've had, a 26-year history of doing this in the United States. Despite that tenure, we grew revenue at 45% last year, and we did it profitably, 50% EBITDA margins on that 45% revenue growth, while we were acquiring businesses and making life simpler for the merchants inside of those businesses.